Hello and welcome to Plugged In, a podcast by Okefenokee OREMC about our co-op, our community, and our shared connections. I'm Michelle Hutchins, your Director of Communications and Marketing, and today we're going to be talking all things Youth Tour. Our annual Youth Tour application process will be opening up shortly, and you can see those dates on our website at www.oremc.com/Youth Tour to get all the details about when those applications need to be in and what you need to submit for a once-in-a-lifetime trip, all expenses paid to Washington, D.C. to travel and see monuments, museums, make a bunch of memories, have some mentoring and more. And joining me today to talk about the Youth Tour are two Youth Tour alums. We have a mother and daughter duo. Marci, you went back in 1996?
Yes, 1996.
96, and then in summer of 25, yes, Ms. Emma went. And so we're going to talk today about your encouragement of getting Emma to apply, how things were the same, how things were different, what you both took away, and why you think even... the Youth Tour is about ready to celebrate 60 years, if you can believe that. 60 years later, it's as important today as it was when Lyndon B. Johnson had the idea to start it. So yes. I guess let's talk about, Emma, you applied and went through the process. When do you ever first remember hearing your mom talk about the Washington Youth Tour?
So I'm really involved in sports, and I travel a lot for games, and my mom would know a bunch of random people from Georgia, and I was really confused all the time. And she told me she knew them from the tour or the trip, and I was so confused. And then about a year ago, when applications opened, she told me about it, and she said my home phone was just going off all the time. I made so many new friends. I was so confused what a home phone was. But she explained to me like the trip and how many memories she made and all the new friends she had, and she showed me her booklet. And
which you did share with me.
Yes, ma'am. Yeah. And so I applied.
And here you are today now, an alum, talking about it.
Yeah.
Marci, tell us about your trip. And the ironic thing is we were on that trip together, though we didn't know each other at the time. You were a delegate, and I actually was a chaperone with a co-op I worked for elsewhere. So yes. It's a little it's a small world after all.
It
kind
really
of moment.
is. Yeah, 6 degrees of separation is for real.
For sure. So tell me about your experience.
So I did encourage Emma. I said, just apply. You don't know what's going to happen. It was a fabulous trip for me. I would definitely encourage you to try as well to see what the worst thing they can tell you is no. And that's basically what my parents told me to. Just try and see what happens. I said, okay, yes, ma'am. And I filled out the application, and they called my name, and I was so excited because it was an opportunity to do something I had never done before. I had always been on trips with people that I knew or family members, but this was a trip I didn't know anyone. So it was definitely a very unique, exciting experience for a 17-year-old to go explore the world without their parents and meet new friends. And it was really a good time, not just the activities that we got to do, but just the experience as a total, because in 1996, also, Atlanta was hosting the Summer Olympics. So Atlanta was also a very favorite spot on the tour for me that year.
Oh, okay. Yeah, because the tour starts in Atlanta. How many delegates went from Okefenokee back in 1996? Were there 2 of you, 3 of you,
there were
4?
3 of us, I believe.
3 of you.
Yes.
Okay. And did you know your other delegates at the time?
I did not know them at the time.
Okay. And I'm just curious, by chance, are you still talking to them today at all?
Unfortunately, no.
Well, that's okay.
But I feel like the times are different. We weren't quite as connected as they are now. So we had to rely on the mail.
Right.
And letter writing was still getting a little antiquated at the time, but it was still happening. And then the phone calls, too, when she was talking about the home phone, the landline.
Yep.
That was how we communicated, unfortunately, without Instagram and
well, at least it wasn't. It probably wasn't a rotary phone. At least it probably wasn't.
No, at that time it was not.
So, as you look back to 1996, what had you been to DC before?
I had not. No,
you had not.
Not at that time.
So, having not been to the nation's capital previously, what were you most looking forward to at that time? And when you think about that, Then what most stuck out to you about the trip?
Well, just as far as with history lessons and seeing pictures in the book of all the monuments in the White House, and just actually those are tangible items that you actually got to see and experience, and just being amazed by all the things that go on without you even knowing. And because we're small, very small in the in the grand scheme of things.
Sure.
Excuse me. So it was definitely an interesting concept to see it in real life. And then one thing that several of the things stood out as far as going to the cemetery. That was a very poignant moment.
Arlington National Cemetery.
Seeing those, and it just meant a lot to me, as my grandfather, both grandfathers are World War II veterans. So knowing the history of that and what that meant to our nation was a very touching time.
Well, the Tomb of the Unknowns is quite a something to experience.
Yes, ma'am.
What was the most unexpected thing that came out of your youth tour experience that maybe was what you encouraged and shared with Emma to make her application?
Just meeting all the people. And we're a unique situation, honestly, because we live in Florida, but we got to go with the Georgia side of the Okefenokee. And we live right on the Georgia-Florida line, so it's a blurry state line for us. So it was neat getting the opportunity to meet more Georgia people. And then I made friends from Nebraska, Kansas, I believe there were a few from Kansas. Just meeting all the variety of people that you got to meet. And it didn't seem like we were very big, but we were a huge group all together.
Sure.
So just the experience of just meeting people and making those connections back when you're in high school, starting it, kicking it off, and hoping that you would see them later on in life throughout some other adventure.
Yes, the national tour itself has grown. I think they say it's about 1,800 kids nationally that come from co-ops across the country. And back in 1996, it was about 1,000. Okay. So it's about doubled in all these years. Yes. Well, so what about what Mom told you? And I believe you told me you had been to DC before this trip, right?
Yes, ma'am. Yeah. I went when I was younger.
Right. Yes, so, but what about the trip and knowing that you had been before, were you most looking forward to?
I was looking forward to the White House, but the Library of Congress was my favorite part, and I was really anticipating visiting that too.
So tell me more. Tell me a little bit more about what about the Library of Congress intrigued you and then met your expectations.
Right. It was so pretty. Obviously, it was so pretty and very historic, and the theater was great. And I loved the people that I went with, so that helped a lot. And I really wanted a Library of Congress card. I really wanted a library card, and that was an adventure to get that. So I think the act of getting my card was...
So you did get it?
I did get it. Okay. I don't have it with me, but I did get it. And I think the adventure of how I achieved getting that card was more interesting than just sightseeing the Library of Congress.
Okay.
But we had
Did you get to go into the reading room?
I did. Yes,
you guys
ma'am.
did get to go in because that's a treat. You don't.
Yes.
That isn't something you always get to do. It's only open certain times, but they probably made special arrangements with the number of you that there were.
We did get to see it. We didn't check anything out, obviously, unless we wanted to make a trip back. But I really enjoyed it. It was fun.
So the Library of Congress was something that you really wanted to see and experience. What other things were things that you were hoping to be able to see and do that now that you were more grown up than when you went as a kid?
I really liked seeing the White House. I think that was really interesting. As far as, I don't really remember going when I was super little, but I do remember seeing pictures. So going and seeing it in person was a lot different. And there were some comments about the history of the White House, but it was more interesting just to see it in person and take pictures and experience that.
What was the most unexpected experience that you brought home from the youth tour? Both of you.
Okay. The most unexpected experience was...
you just never anticipated would come out of this whole trip.
I'm sitting here and talking to you about it so many years later. And then when she won the opportunity to do it, I said, I was so excited. She's like, oh, we get to do this together. And I'm like, yes, it is. Ended up being a together thing, even though we were 20 years apart. Almost.
And that is cool.
Yeah.
And you were both sponsored by Okefenokee REMC.
Yes.
So what about you?
I would say the most unexpected part was just the weather, that it was raining the whole time. So it was my fault that it was unexpected because I was told to prepare in advance. But I would say just the weather made us all, it was all something we could relate to, and there was always something to talk about. So running from storms together and sharing rain jackets and hiding under
alcoves and pavilions
Yes.
and dodging the raindrops.
Yes, and then you ended up with somebody right beside somebody hovering and shivering that you didn't know, and then you met that person because you're both cold together.
Yeah.
I'd say that definitely was unexpected, but it worked out.
Okay. Well, as you got home and you two compared notes, what's the same about the youth tour almost 30 years later, and what's different?
I would say the same is she shared that she didn't really remember the boat all that well, but she did remember, going on it.
Yes.
And we both shared that we're not very good dancers, so we didn't partake in the dancing part. So we were upstairs just talking and hanging out with people because neither of us can dance all that well.
Well, so to just give our listening and viewing audience a better understanding of what you're talking about, one of the events as part of the youth tour is kind of a sunset cruise out on the Potomac River, and the lower deck obviously is covered, and they usually have a DJ, and everybody gets to get their groove on if they want to, and then the top deck is typically open, and so you can kind of congregate and talk to people. Now, who was on the boat with you? It wasn't just Georgia. It was Georgia and who? Do you remember what other state?
I don't specifically remember. I feel like it was a Carolina, North Carolina or South Carolina. They were with us.
And did you meet people? Did you talk to other people?
I met a couple people. Yes, ma'am.
And what about you? Do you said you don't remember the boat that much?
I just remember the boat and talking to people. I don't remember it being very, as far as super memorable. But I feel like I did meet a lot of Florida people at that time. I don't remember if it was from the boat or from just in gatherings that we had. So.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about the days. The days are very, very busy. Why don't you give us a little sense of your itinerary for the week, and what were some of the messages that had to be hammered home to make sure everybody got where they needed to be?
So the days are very, very busy, and they go by quick, but they're also extremely long. So we would wake up, and we would, especially for the girls, we would have to wake up early in advance to make sure we're ready because we take a lot of pictures.
And your days started at what time? What time did you have to be down at the buses typically?
Goodness. Was that 7:30?
7:30, 8 o'clock? Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So we'd be up super early to do our hair, to pick out an outfit, which always took longer than expected. And then we would be on the bus to a monument, and then we'd go get lunch, and then we'd be on the bus to the next monument, or we'd always have something in between every meal, every snack. There was always a monument, a museum, something to do. And sometimes we would eat our meals during the monument or during the museum so we could fit as many sites in as we possibly could. And then we would hang out. We would have some free time at the end of the day, and we were all really tired, but we'd always go get ice cream or see something while we were in D.C. before we all crashed.
Let's talk about some of the highlights. I mean, obviously, you do all the major memorials, and I believe this was the same even back when you and I were there.
Yes.
The Thomas Jefferson, FDR, Martin Luther King, Kennedy, Vietnam, Korean.
Yes.
World War II was not built when you and I were there in 96, but you saw it because it's right near the Washington Monument. You do kind of go by the White House, and you get to take pictures outside the gate, outside the fence. Mount Vernon.
Mount Vernon was very fun.
Yeah. Talk about Mount Vernon a little bit, both of you.
I enjoyed Mount Vernon it was so beautiful, and it just seemed to be so serene compared to everything else that we have visited in the city along the time. And then getting to Mount Vernon, going those little cobblestone streets, and just thinking about how they maneuvered and got around so well for hundreds of years in that particular setting, and all the different secrets that Mount Vernon seems to hold as well was very interesting.
Yeah, so Mount Vernon, for those who aren't sure, was the home of George Washington, George and Martha Washington. How about you? What kind of impression did Mount Vernon make on you?
Mount Vernon was very pretty, and it was one of the only sites that was spaced out as far as we could. We had a lot of time to spend time and explore the whole property, so that was neat. And Okefenokee kind of traveled all together in the same direction, and some of us wanted to engage in conversation with the kind of actors,
Okay.
players that we had, and some of us didn't, but we decided to, and it was really interesting just learning.
Because they're like living history.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right. Yes, ma'am. So that was really interesting. And then there was always a place that we hadn't been yet, and then we got a little bit lost because it's so big, but we wound up back where we started, and the garden was so pretty as well.
Okay. Well, I think you bring up an important point, and I know it was true before. So I know that's one thing that has not changed is that you never travel alone. You know, you always travel at least in groups of 3, and the Okie delegation, you know, was 4 of you and will be 4 going forward. Yes, you have the bus tours that you take to get you from point A to point B, but there is some free time. I mean, there is some free time, and I'm sure there was back then.
Yes.
To especially the mall being that stretch of area that goes from the Capitol all the way down to the Lincoln Memorial. Again, just for those who aren't sure, then all the Smithsonian museums are off to the sides of that. And then your Washington monuments in the middle, and some of your war memorials are at the other end. But I believe, if I remember the itinerary correctly, and again, I think it was probably very similar because I know the kids that I chaperoned way back when, they were allowed to have an afternoon to just go see what you wanted to see. But you never travel alone. You always have to be in groups of 3 or 4. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
I remember many elevator tours. Like, you had to have a group. It was always a group of us going up and down the elevator or the stairs, wherever we were going.
Yeah, to get well, and so when we talk about other things that are different now, I know the Holocaust Museum was open back in 1996, but the Museum of the Native American Indian was not. The African American History Museum was not, and so those are both options now. And I think you all went to the African American History Museum.
Ma'am, we did.
Yes, and I know that it's one of those that you start at the bottom and go up to the top. What other museums did you go to that you particularly enjoyed?
Yes, ma'am. We went to, of course, the Holocaust kind of memorial museum was really interesting. And then we went to, I believe it's the Space and
Air and Space Museum?
The Aviation Museum. And that was really interesting, especially Troy, since he's in ROTC. He is super interested. He made us read every single diagram, labeled paragraph. But it was really informative, and it was really interesting. And a lot of people were actually in that one. So
Okay.
yes, ma'am.
Now, which museums do you recall standing out to you that you went to visit?
I had to.
I'm assuming Holocaust being one of
Holocaust
them.
was the biggest one. I think that was definitely the one that touched you the most. I feel like that previous year in school we had read about Anne Frank.
Yep.
So seeing all the shoes, I think the shoes were just the most overwhelming aspect of the entire museum at that time.
Yeah, I remember that hall of shoes.
And
yes.
you thought that it had just eerie kind of presence about how real that was. And it wasn't just in a book far away. It happened.
Right.
And so that was
It
very
kind
touching.
of brought a very difficult period of history to life in a way that,
something that you don't expect in South Georgia or North Florida
Right.
to see. So
Now, another important component of the youth tour, both then and now, is meeting with your congressional delegations. And I get it. You guys are from Florida. So you got to meet with the Georgia delegation.
Yeah.
But, I mean, I don't know that has changed all that much. But did you get to tour the Capitol? Did you meet on the steps? You had a photo. Marci, tell me about yours.
I did. In fact, it's a funny thing because when we drive through Atlanta, anywhere, I said, "Oh, look, I went there," and I point out the Golden Dome of the Capitol, and they're like, "Okay, my girls are like, oh, that's right, Mom." And but then Emma got to experience that this year, so then she can say, "Oh, I've been there now too. It's the Golden Dome."
Yeah. Well, and then in D.C., obviously.
Oh, yeah.
Did you tour the Capitol in
apologize.
D.C.?
Yes, but we also had gone to Atlanta.
Okay.
In Atlanta, I apologize. I should clarify that.
No, that's okay because we don't tour the Capitol in Atlanta as part of the tour now.
Okay.
But did you all get to tour the Capitol?
Yes, ma'am, we did.
And so you got to go in the Hall of Statues and those secret spots.
We did. It was so interesting. And then we took that big picture on the steps, which was always fun getting ready for. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. And I know a couple of you, I think Troy and Michaela, got to go up the Washington Monument.
Troy and Michaela did.
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
But you got to see it and
Yes,
walk
ma'am.
by it. And so, how was the visit with the congressional delegation? What were the representatives and congressmen, were they talkative? Did they ask you questions? What do you remember about that?
They were very talkative. They asked us plenty of questions, and we had so many questions that he couldn't get to all of us. So he did talk. He had a great message, and it was interesting.
Yeah.
Yes,
Now,
ma'am.
what do you remember about meeting with the congressional delegation when you went before,
It was
Marci?
just an experience. I don't recall a conversation, unfortunately, but it was an experience.
Similar to hers in
Yes.
touring the Capitol and
Yes, ma'am.
and meet now, and I know we sometimes took our kids to the actual offices, but with the Georgia delegation being so big, I think it's typically a meet in a more central area so that they can meet with everybody all at once.
Yes, ma'am.
So we've kind of covered a lot of the places you visit, the things you see. But let's talk about some of the relationships. You've referenced the fact that, the four of you from Okefenokee kind of stuck together quite a bit.
Yes, ma'am.
But talk about that relationship of the four of you, and then some of the other relationships that you made along the way, and then I'll get you to talk about the same thing.
Yes, ma'am. So the Okefenokee group was us four, and I had kind of known Emory by association for a while because we lived close together, but we all met each other at the award ceremony. We didn't speak almost at all. And then we got to Atlanta, and then we all started to get more acquainted with each other, and that was really nice. And I was in a room with Michaela, which was great.
Because at the time, so you represent Nassau County, and then we had Emory from Charlton, Troy from Brantley, and Michaela from Glenn County this
Yes, ma'am.
past year. So a good mix of you all.
Yes, ma'am. And then whenever we started to visit the sites and eat together is when we started talking more. I know we didn't talk the first dinner, but we ended up not stop talking. We always talked. Towards the end, we got really close. It was nice knowing people, especially since there are so many people and everybody's touring the site at the same time. So knowing who you came there with and who's in your room and who's near you is really important. So it was nice having a group to walk around with and talk to that you already previously knew.
Okay. All right. How about you, Marci? What relationship takeaways?
So I vividly remember a couple of things. One was that I had not flown on a commercial airplane before when we left. So the three of us that were from the general area, one had met with us in Atlanta. They already had a previous engagement. So when we flew out of Jacksonville to Atlanta, that's when we knew we were stuck together. This was it. We're on this plane together. We're sitting by each other, and hopefully we make it. One of the girls' name was Christy, and she was so sweet. And she was like, "Have you ever flown before?" And I said, "Only in a little plane." And then she said, "We're going to fly this together." And and she ended up being one of my roommates as well.
Oh,
so
okay.
it was very nice to experience that together. Like, well, big trip. We're going to get big planes.
Well, and I think it's safe to say with all of my youth tour experiences, whether they were here or where I was previously, I think every year there's at least one, and we had one this year that had not flown before. And so that first trip, when we go from Jacksonville to Atlanta, it's a good icebreaker,
It is
so
a
to
very
speak.
good icebreaker, yes.
So yes, there's the trip to DC, but you have alluded a couple times, Emma, to the fact that there's a lot of people, and 115 kids from Georgia is a lot of people, and that you did fall back to your core four, if you will, in time to being your own little posse once you were, in the thick of the trip and doing everything, but. You do go spend 24 hours in Atlanta for team building to get to know everybody else as best you can. So talk about that experience a little bit, the getting up to Atlanta and kind of meeting everybody else before you all board planes together the next day to head up to DC.
Yes, ma'am. So when we get to Atlanta, we don't know anybody except for the people that we came there with. And then during the award not the award ceremony, like the recognition of each delegate, we get to hear more about where they're from and what they do and what they want to do after school. So that was interesting, seeing those people and hearing their aspirations, and then eventually getting to know them personally. That was interesting. And as far as team building, it's a lot of team building, and it goes by extremely quick when you're competitive. So
Talk about some of the team building exercises you did.
for one of our team building exercises, we had to build the light bulb.
Willie the Wire
Willie
Hand.
The wire hand. And ours did not turn out great. Definitely did not win.
Well,
But
tell them what you had to build it out of.
out of PVC pipes, and we had connectors.
Yeah.
And I'm not super technical, so it was difficult.
The idea was
It
to make
definitely
these PVC
difficult.
pipes look as much like
Yes.
Willie as possible. And for those of you who aren't sure, Willie Wirehand is the little guy that's holding the lightning bolt in the OREMC logo. And he is a symbol of cooperatives across the country. He was designed and developed in 1955. And I think we're 1950. At any rate, he's celebrating his 75th birthday this year. So he's 75 years old and the national mascot for co-op. So, he's an integral part of our identity as well as co-ops across the board. And he's always a fun little character to
And he was there as well.
Yeah, you had
so
your
we
picture
did get a picture taken.
So some good times. So you did the same thing way back when. Is that correct?
Yes, we did team building as well. We did not build Willie the Wirehand.
You did
We did not build him. We did other icebreakers. I'm sure that were
Yeah.
typical at that time, but that was not
of course.
one. Yes.
But to both of you, I mean, I assume that was because the groups that I had chaperoned in the past didn't have a statewide, so they didn't have that kind of experience. So I'm assuming that was a nice experience to get a better sense of who you're going to be spending a lot of time with on this trip.
I
for
agree.
the
That was probably one of the best parts, to meet your group beforehand and get to know them a little bit more, so you wouldn't feel not really isolated, but you would have more sense of a community on the tour, like it was a family.
Well
trip,
said. Well said. That's what we like to hear. Now, I know, Emma, you mentioned you're still in contact with some of your fellow delegates and have gotten together outside of the youth tour.
Yes, ma'am, I am. I still talk to Troy and Michaela and Emery and Will from Athens, Georgia.
Okay, so that's someone you met on the trip.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And you've said, well, as Emma noted when you started this conversation, you go to different places and you know so many people. So you have quite a few people scattered about.
Yes, throughout different connections, I've been able to maintain some relationships. Some were a little bit harder just because we had to rely on the post office.
Like we said. Yeah.
And landlines, however, but it's nice to see a friendly face. Even after all those years, most of us still look almost the same.
So as we look forward to this year's application process and inviting high school juniors who go to any of the high schools in our 8-county service area are eligible to apply, and we look to the fact that, okay, this tour has been going on for 60 years. Why is that so important? Why is it important for this tour to continue, and why is it important for people to apply and take the chance to maybe being selected? Would you go so far as to say to some degree that the tour changed you in some way, changed your perception of things in some way that maybe it hadn't before?
Yes, ma'am. I do think it's a really unique experience because all the other trips I go on, there are chapter officers, there are state officers, there are members, but whenever you have the whole state of Georgia and they're all selected leaders in their community and you're with a group of like-minded, maybe we don't share all the same interests because everybody's in FFA and I am not in FFA, but it's just a bunch of leaders, especially my age, my peers, and it's not an experience you get with a bunch of like-minded people and driven people. So it's definitely a different opportunity.
Okay. And what about you, Marci?
I would agree with Emma for the most part. Everybody is on equal footing, so everybody has something to bring to the table, and you don't know them. So it is kind of almost like you're stepping out. If you go to college away from home, you are stepping out on your own. You're having to handle these situations on your own, and it's reassuring that you were prepared for that throughout your upbringing. If you are how you handle these situations, being on your own essentially and making way. Nobody has any foreknowledge of what you were, and you can be who you are in front of people that you don't even know without having to worry for that being trying to find a word. Sorry, I apologize.
No, but that's okay.
Trying to find a word. You don't have that premonition or precursor.
Well, and I think you allude to an important point, and that is, yes, I mean, you have traveled with other groups, but that being said, this still had a very unique opportunity within the context of the trip. And then for others, this may be their one and only chance to do anything like this.
Right.
They may not have done any other school-based trips or club-based trips for whatever reason. And so it's a big step for some. It's a very big step, and it's a growing opportunity. And one of the things that our statewide advisors and organizers always say is that the Georgia contingent in particular, doors are opened for them. And one of the reasons that doors are open for them is that there are some dress code requirements, and there are expectations in how you present yourself. And, it is casual, and there are casual days. There are no jeans, as you well know. But putting your best foot forward is a key component to this. It is part of the learning experience in presenting yourself and being a leader and putting yourself out there. Would you both agree with that?
Yes.
Yes, definitely. Because even though finding very cute clothes in the dress code was a little bit difficult for me, which I had to go shopping, which I don't mind, but it definitely set us apart as far as our red name tags. Everybody knew that we were from Georgia. We were all well behaved, and we always looked very put together. Especially, I think the jeans wouldn't have worked out, would have made us look a little bit different. But we looked very put together and classy. So
and I'm assuming that is a component of the tour that is not changed.
Correct. I remember having to go shopping for specific clothes as well, and they weren't formal and they weren't stuffy, but they were definitely more conservative, more traditional clothing. And your footwear had to be comfortable yet not sporty per se. As far as it had to be more dressy than sporty.
Definitely set us apart.
Yeah. Well, and again, that's part of what the Georgia statewide is very proud of. Now, all that being said, and you being from Florida, behind the scenes, we did try to make a very big effort that you connected with the Florida group and the Florida coordinator. And I know that Alicia came up and talked to you. Did she not?
Yes, ma'am. I did get to meet some Florida people, and some of the advisors from the Florida people I knew from Hilliard, which was kind of crazy. I made those connections. I got to see them for about 15 minutes after one of our sessions as a whole collective.
Yeah, we haven't talked about that a little bit. So just as part of the youth tour, basically all 1,800 of you stay. It's a couple of hotels that are side by side. And there are mingling areas or game rooms that when all the official programming for the day is over, y'all were allowed to do meet and greets and hang out. But both in 1996 and 2025, there are throughout the week a couple of all-state events. Do you guys want to talk about those and maybe how you, in changing notes, are the same, similar, and or different than they used to be?
For a lot of those events that have all the states, it's usually a big session, or we'll have some kind of competitions or a speaker. And that was really interesting. And then afterwards, we would get to mingle with other states. We would also cheer. We had like a cheering competition, which Georgia people are really competitive, so am I. So that was a lot of fun. And then, you mentioned during the boat, we had, I think, North Carolina or South Carolina with us. So during a couple of the visits, you'll have another state with you. And that's a good opportunity to meet people from that specific state.
And you learn how you might be different, but more importantly, how you're very similar.
Yes, ma'am.
How about you, Marci?
We did have events, and I just felt I did meet the Florida people when I was there, and I met some kids I actually played sports against because of being in sports that long. So that was kind of interesting at the time, and being able to that connection. But then they would be confused because we had a Georgia tag, and I'm like, well, I know, but we live literally on the line. And they said, well, you're serviced by Georgia. I said, yes, we are. We are very unique. We are unique people.
Well, and you're not the only one, because there is a co-op in Georgia, North Georgia, that serves part of North Carolina.
Yes,
Yeah.
I did get to meet him.
Yeah,
yes.
and then there are some other states that have some just over the border. I know a long time ago, New Hampshire used to serve part of Vermont, just over the Connecticut River. And there are some other states in other parts of the country that have that same. So there are times when there's a little crossover, but we're one big happy co-op family.
Exactly. Those lines are blurred.
Exactly. So I want to thank both of you for taking the time to talk to me about each of your experiences. While times have changed and technology has changed, and the opportunity to connect is different than it used to be. I think the Youth Tour is a tried and true experience that offers, even if you've been before, even if you've traveled with student groups to other locations before, it in itself is unique in terms of the foundation that brings you together, the expectations that are definitely on you as a representative of your co-op, of your school, of your state. Those have not changed. And in some cases, you're representing more than one state, even though you have a Georgia name tag. But that it is, and I guess that's the question. Does it live up to how we promote it? We promoted it as this once in a lifetime trip that you see the full gamut of monuments, museums, and memorials, and you do learn leadership skills and how to mingle and mentor others. Does it live up to that?
I would agree wholeheartedly with that. It does. It's a personal connection with people that you never would have had that time together with before, and it's a lasting impression, because I encourage her to do it, and I would encourage anyone to do it because it is such a great opportunity.
I definitely say that is true. I was telling my mom on the way here, it almost feels like a different world, like a different atmosphere, because it's a week long, which seems like a long time, but it goes by so fast. But it's all the people that you talk to from Georgia, from your co-op, and you get to know them so well that it just feels like it's your own little family. And those are the people that you enjoy spending time with, and then you find people that you like and people that it was nice to meet them. But it's definitely different, and it's super unique. Like, I've never been on a trip like this. So I would say it was wonderful.
Definitely worth it.
Yes.
Well, you've heard it from firsthand experience, a tried and true experience that leaves a legacy, a lasting legacy. So to actually have a mother and daughter who both went and represented Okefenokee REMC is certainly a unique opportunity to get that perspective. So I thank both of you for taking the time to talk to us. And as I said at the beginning, the application process is opening here very shortly. It's a trip of a lifetime and one you won't soon forget. So please look at us, check it out, oremc.com/youth tour. And we hope to see you soon.